Hey, greetings everybody. Peace and power and elevation. This your girl Tiffany here live in effect. So as you can see the title tonight, yes, we're gonna be discussing about this because a lot of us are so much admired by or have inspiration behind this organization and the things that they have done for the community. And also we was very much inspired by the leader. Now it's so funny because I did a subject on Huey Newton a while back, and when I did the subject, I only came across the information I was able to come across, but there's more information that has not been exposed to the public, okay, where everybody don't really know except for those who were in the organization, those who have done the research, and the authors who wrote the book. So yeah, there's the controversy behind Huey Newton and the Black Panther Party. I mean, there's some deep controversy. So today I'm going to bring a friend of mine by the name of Desjon Yisrael. He's going to discuss some information with me. So he's going to share some information as far as like the PDF, the books, and whatnot. And we're going to have this dialogue. So please, y'all just hear him out, listen. I know people are going to be upset about this. I know it's going to get people in their feelings, but we got to hear it. We got to really hear it. All right. So let me go ahead and bring my friend on here. Hey, peace,
Hey,
Desjon. How you doing? What's going on?
all
What's
right,
up?
sister, what's going on with you? I'm doing all right. Just ready to get into this interesting dialogue. Very interesting, but yet controversial dialogue that we're about to
Yeah.
engage in. Most definitely.
Yeah, so I gotta ask this: like, what's the main reason why we having this conversation regard to the controversy behind Huey P. Newton and what was going on in the Black Panther Party? Why is it necessary for us to really have this conversation?
I mean, I feel it's very necessary and imperative to have this conversation because I know it's in these various movements and organizations where predatory behavior um, is put on certain people, and this people engage in predatory behavior that's not being called out. That's people not being held accountable, but yet we want to hold certain average individuals or hold certain other people like R. Kelly and Polite accountable for some of the same stuff that Huey P. Newton was doing. And this is by no means trying to bash him or try to discredit some of his contributions that he made to not only the Black Panther Party, but to the Black community in general. However, we have to expose the bad and the ugly side of it as well, so we can learn from the mistakes and the bad decisions that they made.
Right. And then when I came across the information, I was very shocked. I was very behooved. I just couldn't believe it. I didn't know what to really say at the moment because I was so much inspired by this man and the work that he was doing, and he was very intelligent. So
Most definitely.
I didn't never think that that would be a case of that situation going on. But you never know what goes on in this movement. And ironically, the person that spoke on what happened as far as the predatory behavior was a former Black Panther herself.
Yes, Sister Erica Huggins. And when I came
Yes.
across, I mean, I was already privy and already understanding of what Huey done as far as the cocaine abuse and all that. I mean, I knew that years ago.
Right. I knew
However,
about the drug addiction. Yeah.
when I came across this, I'm like, whoa. Like, I mean, I knew that certain Panther Party members had basically left the party based on Huey's increased erratic behavior. But I didn't know anything about the whole rape situation with Erica Huggins until I read that article from the University of Berkeley. They was in the library with Fiona Thompson back in 2007. When I came across that article, like, whoa, like this behavior is completely unacceptable.
Mm. So, do you have the information that you say you want to share some information that you came across so far? So, what would you like to share? What would you like to start off with?
I'm gonna start off with the article with the interview by with Fiona Thompson back in 2007 from the University of Berkeley. Go ahead and
Okay.
share my screen.
Okay. So, it's at the bottom where it says
Present.
present,
Okay.
present.
Okay. Share screen. Okay, bear with me 1 second while I pull it up.
Okay.
All right, can you see it?
Oh yeah, I can see it. Okay.
Okay, we're gonna do some reading here on page. We're gonna start at page 99. We're gonna work our way down to page 100. Okay, I'm
Okay.
not gonna read the
Okay.
whole thing because it's very extensive, but I'm just gonna
Okay.
read certain key points where I want to drive home. Okay, it says at the very end of 1979, something happened. I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to say it in my book, but I'm going to say it. Bettina Aptheker, in her book Intimate Politics, talks about learning from, she's Buddhist now, learning from a spiritual teacher that she respected. That's important to bear witness. She quotes him by saying to shine light all over something so that no one could say it didn't happen. That teacher and Bettina quoting him didn't mean you point your finger, you blame, you judge, you defame the person or the organization or the situation. You just tell your story. My story that I want to bear witness about is at the beginning of December of 1979, I was living in the house, another house in the lake area where I also had people to come meditate once a week. I was living there with my children, Rasa and Mai, on Weldon Avenue. I told you earlier that Huey would often call me to his house to sit and chat with him. That was a common thing and continued to be so, but less frequently in 1979 because his addictive behavior had escalated. Key point. There were more and more times when he was in that manic state than not. He wasn't really doing any party work I could think of, but I was spending 60 to 70 hours with the school, not to mention I was raising my children. My daughter was 10 and Rasa was 5. Maybe they were, no, maybe they were 11 or 6 by that time. I'm not sure. At any rate, my daughter, this particular day I'm going to describe, my daughter was spending the night with someone, a friend of hers, and Rasa was asleep. I heard a knock on the door at 10 or 11 at night. The state that I was in was really torn between continuing to stay with the Black Panther Party and pursuing my spiritual path. I wasn't torn because I had thought that political action and spiritual action can't go together. That wasn't it. It was Huey's behavior which was setting a new tone and a new flavor to what work was being done. Almost any part of work at all anymore. They were just with him. It was as if they just hit the streets. I knocked on the door. I saw a man I know
Hold on,
my
brother
nephew.
Desjon. Brother Desjon, you going out. Yeah, you going in and
Hear
out.
me now?
Yeah, I
You
can
hear me
hear you
now?
now. Yeah, I can hear you. You just start back from
All
where you
right.
was reading.
Again or
Brother?
okay. I'm sitting here from the beginning, or where do you want me to start reading from?
Where you had left off.
Okay. All right, it says it was Huey's behavior which was setting a new tone and giving a new flavor to what work was being done. And also, most of the men around him weren't doing any party work at all anymore. They were just with him. It was as if they just lived for the streets. I got this knock on the door and I saw a man I know. Actually, he's my nephew's father. I could see him standing outside. I knew that Huey must be with him because this man and Huey, George and Huey, traveled together at night. So I opened the door. It was Huey, my friend. When Huey came in, he was crazy. I don't mean he was saying words that was crazy. He was crazy. I don't know how much he had been using or for how long, but he was on some kind of binge. And George was his normal, peaceful, quiet, stoic self. George stepped to the side to let Huey through. Huey said, "Where's your bedroom?" I think that means I want to talk to you privately because quite often when I would go visit Huey, I would go into his bedroom. It was like his bedroom was his quiet place, his sanctuary. I said, "It's upstairs." "What's up?" He goes, "Follow me." So I went upstairs and He raped me. I can give you details moment by moment on how it occurred, but I'll say that rape, we all know, never has anything to do with sex, and it certainly didn't. It was violent. I was violated. I'm saying it a matter of factly because I know that it's true. I don't care what women write in books, the scholars that talk about rape, or the psychologists, the psychiatrists, or whoever they are. It is the most violent thing I think that a person can do to another person, man or woman, and women can do it too. Let's be real. I have to say that that behavior in Huey shocked me. Shocked me. Kind of like, oh, what is going on with you? But this shocked me. Of course, right before it occurred, Ross had this intuition to leap out of his bed and come running into my room as he normally did when he could. Ross has always had this sixth sense to me, and he jumped in my bed. Maybe he had a bad dream, or maybe he had a nightmare or something, but he jumped in my bed, and he, not realizing anybody was there, Huey just quietly said, send him back to his room. Because I was afraid for Rasta. I felt like his presence was some kind of protection. I don't know how to describe it. I'm not glad that Rasta was there, but I'm glad that Rasta was there. I'm just gonna end on that note because that right there is very significant. Because when I read that part right now, that's what really made me start to see Huey P. Newton in a different light. I mean, I'm not negating all the positive contributions that he made toward the party and him establishing the free breakfast program, him making all the early contributions to the party and the formation of it. Mm-hmm. However, like this sort of type of predatory behavior is unacceptable.
Wow. Wow, and you're right, it is. I mean, just listen to you reading that now and then thinking about it, it's like, wow, and nobody, it's almost like nobody came to her defense. Nobody came to her defense. Nobody tried to, try to save her or whatnot. Now, I do remember reading somewhere down in the article where he told her if she tells someone that he will come after her and her family.
Absolutely. And my thing is like, it felt as though he instilled fear and intimidation to his members and also to the Oakland community. Because I've read some other stuff where Huey P was trying to take over the Oakland drug trade and all that. Like it's a lot of stuff that people don't know, and if you do tell them, they try to be dismissive of the information. They'll try to basically discredit what you're saying and trying to say you making stuff up and all this. But I'm reading actual primary sources. Like that was an actual interview that Erica Huggins had with Fiona Thompson. These are her own words. It's not something that the FBI or COINTELPRO concocted.
Now, there was a book that you shared with me. What was the name of it? It was called The Shadow of Huey Newton. Do you have that book?
Shadow of the Panther. And I could read certain aspects of that as well.
Okay.
Share that with the audience, because this information right here is this corroborates some of his predatory behavior. Again, I'm not trying to discredit him, but we gotta tell the bad along with the good.
Right, you gotta tell it like it is, yeah.
Tell it like it is. Okay, and I'm just gonna read off of pages 248 and 249. I can read all the way to 250, but basically it says Mary Kennedy was set in as a head cook at the lamppost, where she watched an increasingly coked up, paranoid Huey P. Newton intimidate party members. Throughout the time, the above ground operation of the Panthers were having a positive effect. Huey Newton's drug crazed behavior was having this negative impact, frightening the people of Oakland as well as most members of the party. If you were integral to running every important party programs or were part of Newton's exclusive squad responsible for enforcing the party's will on those who ran Oakland's vices, you could usually avoid his wrath. But if you were an ordinary rank and file member, it was far more difficult. Now that part right there, about the rank and file member, Bobby Seale had an interview with this white man, and he was basically disclosing the fact that Huey P. Newton had, basically was hearing rumors that people was talking about him from mostly from Elaine Brown. And Huey P. Newton was like coked up and had beat a rank and file party member to death, just about. And a lot of party members had seeing it and seeing Huey P. Newton do that. But I'm gonna continue. It says, but though there were the dramatic moments involving some party higher-ups. One day at the lamppost, Mary was telling one of Huey's bodyguards about a problem she was having with an important party member named John. While she was telling the story, Huey walked up, surrounded by his other bodyguards. Seeing Huey, Mary shut up. No, don't stop telling the story, said the bodyguard who had been listening to her. It was dangerous to suddenly become quiet when Huey approached, because he would think you had been talking about him. Mary kept telling her story, the upshot of which was that John told her he was going to kick her out of the party. John told you that he was going to kick you out of the party, Newton asked. That night, John was beaten. There was no telling what a coked up Huey Newton might do. One day, one of his bodyguards was late in picking him up from the court because he had to drive around the corner rather than wait out in front of the courthouse, a transgression that resulted in Newton's punching him, leaving him with a black eye. To make up for it, Newton gave him a cigar because a cigar was for a thinking man. Another night, a coked up Newton received word that a rank and file party member who slept overnight at the home for party children had a little hobby. She told people their futures with tarot cards. Newton instructed one of his bodyguards to take me over to where this bitch is reading futures. When they arrived, this woman was in bed. Huey had her awakened. I hear you been telling people their futures, he said. Well, it's just a little joke, she replied. Well, I want you to tell me mine. Get the cards. The woman got the cards out, laid them across the table, and began to tell Huey Newton his future. After a few minutes, he asked her, did the cards tell you that I'm going to whoop your motherfucking ass? At that point, he had his bodyguard hold the woman while he beat her. A frequent coked up Newton, surrounded by members of his squad, frequently prowled after hours clubs, not only for payoffs, but also for women and drugs. Once he and his entourage arrived at their chosen spot, Newton instructed his bodyguards to watch the entrances and not let anyone out. At that point, he would engage in a political tirade for hours, ending with the repeated shout, I am the supreme servant. Or he would pick out a male at the club and engage him in a fist fight. Or he would choose a woman and engage in carnal pleasures with her. It didn't matter how she felt about it, or if she was with her boyfriend or her husband. If he wanted her, that was it. Should her companion object, Newton had one of his bodyguards pistol whip him. If the police were called, once they arrived, seeing anything, people were too scared. Okay, so that there corroborates and validates the point that Huey P. Newton had his increasing erratic behavior due to his drug addiction led to people being afraid of him, people being intimidated by him, and furthermore, him having his way as far as like sexual pleasures and so forth. So that right there corroborates the information about the whole Erica Huggins rape situation.
Wow.
And right there, I mean, and people try to say that book is controversial because the author was a black Republican and he had a lot
Yeah.
of animosity and hostility towards black liberation moves. I mean, which that's really irrelevant considering the fact that, I mean, we can't ignore objective information because it goes against your confirmation bias. That's not how you do objective scholarship.
Exactly. And that's where the problem gets in. The first thing they'll call somebody is an agent. And so by that man
Mhm.
being a Republican, he got ridiculed for writing a book like that. But would it have been different if it was written by somebody that was a Democrat, that was a liberal? Would it have been different?
I mean, precisely.
Would it have been different? No,
I mean,
no,
either way, I
no.
mean, it's still what he did. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's backed up even by people that was actually in the party. So, are you going to call them a liar too?
Mm. So now let's get into about Bobby Seale, him and Bobby Seale's
Mm-hmm.
relationship. what was one of the main reasons why Bobby Seale left the Black Panther Party?
Well, it was increasingly Huey's erratic behavior. I don't know if I can corroborate or confirm this, but I've also heard that Huey P. Newton was beating him too in his penthouse, because Huey P. Newton had a penthouse, and I think in Oakland or Berkeley, where certain people in there were basically victims of his attacks. And I don't know if you read the story where he had pistol whipped a tailor who basically called him baby,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm.
basically he had beat him. He had pistol whipped him, and then I guess the guy fought him off long enough to try to get out of the apartment, but he was caught, and then he was frequently beaten some more. I mean,
Mm.
not only that, but Huey P. Newton also, they said that he had shot a prostitute, Kathleen Smith. I mean, they had evidence that he did it. I mean, this is when he had fled to Cuba for 3 years, went to Cuba from 1974 to 1977. I mean, then when he had came back, I mean, he had got off somehow. I mean, I forgot how actually he got off, but I know that Huey P. Newton, he wasn't as celebrated this time as when he got out of prison in 1970.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, now when I had studied about the origin of the Black Panther Party in the very beginning, they were more male dominated because they didn't want women to be members. You know what I'm saying? Women could not become members of the organization at first, right?
Yeah.
So they had to be like behind the scene. And then I guess all that had changed when more and more women said, "Well, we want to be a part of this too because we are part. We're part of the a race group, and we deal with oppression or whatnot." So that's when they started letting women in. And I think Elaine Brown happened to be one of the first women to become a chairman or something, or have like
Yeah.
leadership role at that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. But I do remember reading where she was saying at one point that yeah, they was like treating women unfairly.
Mm-hmm. And I read
Yep.
that numerous other sources as well, where the women, it was more like a patriarchal type of
Mhm.
hierarchy that they had going on within the Black Panther Party. I mean, although most of the membership was mostly women, about
Mhm.
60% women in the Black Panther Party. I mean, you had Kathleen Cleaver. I mean, you had um, Elaine Brown. You had Erica Huggins. I mean, those are the prominent figures that we all know of.
Mhm.
But there was
Right.
comprised of women mostly. But I mean, shout out to Chairman Fred Hampton Sr. I mean, rest in peace to the chairman. I mean, shout out to his son as well, Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. Now, those were Chairman Fred Hampton Sr. was actually sincere as far as helping the people. I mean, not saying that Huey
Okay.
P wasn't at first, but go ahead.
No, no, go ahead. Now I'm listening.
Yeah, I'm saying not saying that Huey P didn't make no contributions at first, helping to get the party established. And I mean, him and Bobby still did some tremendous amount of good work in the community. However, but yeah, Huey was doing a lot of stuff that once he got addicted to those drugs, he started doing a lot of stuff that led to the demise of the party, and also ultimately led to his demise on August the 22nd, 1989.
Mm. Yeah, and I do, and he died 8 days before I was born because I was born on August 30th. He died August 22nd, 1989. So I read
Mm-hmm.
in the article where the guys, the drug dealers that was coming after him, they not only they beat him, he told them, he said, "You might as well go ahead and take my life. You might as well go ahead and kill me." Because they beat him with a gun. And so then they eventually shot him. You know what I'm saying? No, he said, "You might as well go ahead and take my life. You don't know me. I am the founder of the Black Panther Party." So
Yeah.
as they was beating on him, and then they took the gun and they shot him. Um, so did he ever get a chance to meet Fred Hampton or no?
No, Huey was locked up by when Fred Hampton had made his name known. Huey was locked up around that time. I mean, he did meet Bobby Seale. I mean, Bobby, and people don't give Bobby Seale his credit. Bobby Seale was
Right.
really the one that helped the Panthers expand nationally.
Mm-hmm.
Bobby Seale was the one that really broke things down, like dialectical materialism, quantitative methods, all that Huey P was trying to when Huey almost put people to sleep trying trying to explain stuff. I mean, because they said that he was very monotonous and his voice was really dull
Exactly.
and
And as a matter of fact, I could read some information in this book, but go ahead.
I mean, but Bobby Seale was really the one that helped the Black Panther Party expand to Chicago and expand to Milwaukee and the various other chapters that the Black Panther Party established. This is why Huey was incarcerated.
Mm. Mm. Wow. Why you think he wasn't receiving a lot of credit, Bobby Seale?
I mean, I guess because Huey P. Newton was the face of the whole organization. And
Right.
I mean, Bobby Seale actually broke things down to where the people could actually understand it. I mean, even Eldridge Cleveland, some of his and I don't really want to dig too deep into what Eldridge Cleveland was doing because I heard he was allegedly beating Kathleen Cleveland, doing all holding people in hostage in Algeria and all that as well. But Eldridge Cleveland was more of a profound speaker. He was more of a captivating, charismatic speaker than Huey P. Newton.
Mm. Now, I mean, it's just for me. I had a hard time, giving credit to Eldridge Cleaver once I read this book and what I read, what he wrote in this book about what he done did to women, how he would take them to like abandoned buildings and violate them. It just made my stomach turn. I just couldn't. I can't really give him credit. I just can't. You know what I'm saying? As him being, you know, one of the members of the Black Panthers, Black Panther Party, but I do understand the time, he was married to Kathleen Cleaver and that was her husband. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, I just can't. It's just hard. And then with Huey, it's making it even worse. So now let me give you a count on what Asada Shakur said in her book. All
Most
right.
definitely.
All right. So now she started out critiquing how the Black Panther Party was. She said, um, she said, usually after a disagreement, they suggest I read this and this or that. Often Marx, Lenin, or Engels. I prefer Ho Chi Minh, Kim the second song Shay or Fidel, but I end up having to get into Marx and Lenin just to understand a lot of the speeches and stuff Huey Newton was putting out. It wasn't easy reading, but I was glad I did it. I opened up my horizon a hell of a lot. I didn't relate to them as the great white fathers like some kind of guys I like some of the white revolutionaries did. As far as I was concerned, they were two dudes who had made contribution to revolutionary struggles too great to be ignored. Then she also goes down, right? She said, the more I studied, the more critical I became of the political education program in the party. There were three different political education classes: community classes, classes for BPP, cadre, and PE classes for Panther leadership. In the community classes, Panthers explained the 10-point program and the general objectives and philosophy of the Black Panther, as well as various articles that appeared in the Black Panther newspaper. As far as I was concerned, these were the best political education classes the party ever gave. If the teachers were good, the classes was interesting and fun. Now, she said, with a few exception, political education classes for party members turned out to be just the opposite. We review articles in the Black Panther Party paper, reading passages from Mao's Red Book, and discuss certain speeches and articles by various party members. Most of the time, whoever was giving the class discussed whatever we were studying and explained it, but without giving the underlying issues or putting it into any historical context. The basic problem was not whether the teacher was good or bad. The basic problem stemmed from the fact that the Black Panther Party had no systemic approach to political education. They were reading the Red Book but didn't know who Harriet Tubman, Marcus Garvey, and Nat Turner were. They talked about intercommunalism but still really believed that the Civil War was fought to free the slaves. A whole lot of them barely understood any kind of history, black, African, or otherwise. Huey Newton had written that politics was war without bloodshed and that war was politics with bloodshed. To a lot of Panthers, however, struggle consists of only two aspects: picking up the gun and serving the people. Now, with that being said, I mean, do you think, what is your thought on that as far as what Asad Shakur was saying in this book?
Well, from the parts that I was reading, She did make some critiques about the Black Panther Party, that they were always in defense all the time, to the point where they had to guard offices, and how the feds or the police would just come in and shoot, and they have to put up mattresses and all that, and the bullets were trying to protect the Black Panther Party, and they really didn't establish an above ground political party and the underground clandestine party. So that right there about the political education, I do feel as though, due to that socialist ideology, that they lean more towards Marx and Engels, and they was dismissive of anything that pertained to Pan-Africanism. I mean, we know that they heavily critique cultural nationalism, which I think they tremendously misunderstood. So that, with that being said, like, I just feel as though the Black Panther Party could have taught more on Black history. I mean, they did start off reading Frantz Fanon, and they was reading the autobiography of Malcolm X and so forth, and identifying with the struggles of Algerians, and so forth. However, they could have engaged more in international politics with Africa. I mean, as if they wanted to establish a power base. So those are my thoughts about that.
And then now here's the part that get interesting. She put that was the main reason many party members, in my opinion, underestimate the need to unite with other Black organizations and to struggle around various community issues. A lot of the brothers and sisters had joined because they were sick and tired of the oppression they had been suffering. Most of them had never been in the struggle before. Quite a few joined thinking the party was going to issue them a gun and direct them to go out and shoot pigs. Most of these brothers and sisters had attended inferior schools, which either taught them lies or nothing at all. And then it goes on to say education of every kind was sorely needed. Without an adequate education program, many Panthers fell into a revolting bad. They repeated slogans and phrases without understanding their complete meaning, often resulting in dogmatic and short-sighted practices. For example, one day an African brother who was working with one of the African liberation movements came into the office and gave us a beautiful calendar put out by one of the African liberation group. It was bad. It had beautiful pictures of African freedom fighters and said something like international support for African liberation. The first thing I did was hang it up. When I came to the office the next day, the calendar was gone. When I asked what had happened to it, they said the calendar said international, and we're not internationalists, we're into communalists. Now, when you hear when you hear the last part, we're not internationalists, we're into communalists, does that bring about a red flag?
Yeah, I mean, because Huey was all over the place with his ideologies. One minute is we revolutionary nationalists, and the next minute that we internationalists and we intercommunists, and it just really gets to the point where the people really confused about what ideology to really follow, because you always changing something up. That does steer a red flag within your whole ideology and what you're trying to convey to the people.
Okay, so the question is, well, what's the difference between being an internationalist and intercommunalist?
Mm, that I have to read more on, but I do know that from what I read in To Die for the People, that I guess nations would, I guess that there was no longer nations that were oppressed, but it was actually communities that were oppressed. So like I said, I have to read more into that. I'm not going to say that I actually know it off the top of my head, because I haven't read that book in so long. I mean, yeah, they all were very young. And we know about the trumped up charges with COINTELPRO. We know all that information. However, like, certain behavior have to be called out. My thing is, every year, and I know you probably experienced as well, every year around December 25th, around the time Kwanzaa, they always want to bring up Milana Karenga's charges and bring up what Milana
Right,
Karenga has done
right.
every year.
And
And I'm
speaking of that,
like,
well then let's get into that. So what was the conflict between uh Morena Karenga's organization, us, and the Black Panther?
mhm.
What was the
well,
conflict?
that was really fomented by the COINTELPRO, the FBI, Bobby Seale, Geronimo Pratt, and all of them basically corroborated that the FBI had a lot to do with that. However, on in 1969, there was a conflict between us members and Bunchy Carter and John Huggins, which is Erica Huggins' husband, and it
Mm-hmm.
ultimately led to the demise of um, Bunchy Carter and John Huggins. Now, I read where Milana Karenga wasn't even on the scene; he was having a meeting somewhere else around the time that happened. But he often gets accused and blamed for the situation that happened with Bunchy Carter and John Huggins' death.
Mm.
I mean, there's allegations that Milana Karenga had tortured two women. I read sources where that's been debunked. In addition to him being a government agent, which Geronimo Pratt himself debunked that. But yeah, every year around Kwanzaa, people bring up the allegation about Malala Karenga being an agent, which that hasn't really been corroborated by any type of sources. That's basically based on hearsay by elders and other people that had such contempt for the US organization. But the US organization members and Black Panther parties have called the truth. So why are we continuously bringing up what Malala Karenga allegedly done back in the 60s and the 70s? Both parties have called the truth.
Mm. Yeah, that's the thing. Is it? Do you think they doing that as a way to discourage people from celebrating Kwanzaa?
I mean, yeah, that and to the fact that what somebody else saying, because I mean, elders can lie as well. I mean, to try to protect the image of the party or his members. But I do think that Kwanzaa does embody great African principles that we should be practicing, and not just around that time. And to try this based on allegations that you really can't validate and confirm, it's totally absurd.
Mm. Mm. It's quite sad when you look at these movements, right? And you thinking the ultimate goal is to
Mhm.
really try to liberate those who have dealt with the oppression from the system or whatnot. It becomes a whole nother problem. It's always the same story. It's always centered around an individual who want to be recognized, who want to be a
Absolutely.
face. Either they want to be the Messiah or either they want to be the revolutionary heroes. You know what I'm saying? And they have not put in the amount of work or effort to be given such a title. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
so now
And
you
my thing is adding to that. We want to like basically individualize these certain individuals, and that's when the whole organization end up crumbling and dismantling because y'all want to have one leader and not really actually mold other leaders into becoming leaders. And then once the main leader get assassinated or get martyred for the struggle, then the whole organization dismantles. Like for instance, with Malcolm X's organization of Afro-American Unity. Once Malcolm X was assassinated, they didn't even know where to turn. The organization ended up becoming defunct. So we
mm,
gotta we gotta build other leaders to replace the leader that end up getting assassinated or martyred for the struggle. And and speaking of being martyred for the struggle, that's the thing. Like Dr. King, Malcolm X, Fred Hampton, all of them left their families behind. Like
mm.
due to them being so dedicated to people, and the people that they fought for really didn't do nothing for them in return. I mean, we just got to be honest about the whole situation. Malcolm X ended up dying broke, and Betty Shabazz and her six girls had to go on welfare. Like
Exactly.
the whole
Exactly.
revolutionary community should be embarrassed by it.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, because here you had a man that was a powerful figure in the organization. He's he was the reason why many people was able to join the NOI. You know what I'm saying? So when
Mhm.
you got a power figure like that, right? Now it's people around that's jealous of that one powerful figure. You know what I'm saying? See, in his mind,
Absolutely.
he thinking that he
Mhm.
trying to unite and he trying to bring black people together, but the others felt like, oh, he trying to earn more power and recognition. That's why you heard the phrase with them saying, "Get out of my pocket, get your hands out of my pockets," right? So now
Mhm.
this man is gone. his family is left with nothing. You know what I'm saying? Nobody from the nation stepped up and said, hey, we will make sure that you all are taken care of. And we want to make sure that you guys have, y'all have something to live off of or live by, so you won't have to go on the government assistant or anything like that. None of that. So you left the family to struggle. And this is what Tupac was saying when he gave a speech back in 93. Um, when Khalid
Yeah, I know
Muhammad
this.
was out here in Atlanta, right? He was like,
Mhm.
he was cussing and whatnot. They told him not to cuss, but he went on here and did. So he was like, look, my mama was left to struggle. My mama was left to be on welfare. She got addicted to drugs. Nobody really stepped in and helped her out. Because, Finny Shakur was a Panther. You know what I'm saying? So she
Mhm.
was a Black Panther herself. And so after she had, once the Black Panther Party started to dismantle, that left her in a state of destitution. You know what I mean? And but then she was dealing with many conflict herself. You know what I mean? So, but you don't hear too many stories
Mhm.
about Afeni Shakur as much. But she was dealing with a lot of conflict, and then
Yeah.
a lot of people was upset about the story that she told about Tupac father. Okay. So we don't really
Mhm.
know the whole story. We don't know why she told him that his father wasn't alive, that he passed away. I think it was wrong, but at the same time, we don't know what the nature of their relationship was. We don't know if he
Absolutely.
actually, yeah, we don't know if he left her to raise Tupac on her own, if he didn't want to have anything to do with him. You know what I'm saying? So we don't know. Maybe she could have told him that because she couldn't say, well, your father didn't want to have anything to do with you. He left and he doesn't want to be bothered. So, right, she couldn't say it like that. So basically she felt that it would be best to tell him that his father passed away. But that's not the smartest thing to do. However, she felt like, well, if he's not gonna be around, he might as well be deceased. but
Absolutely.
but I mean, it's a sad situation. That situation is sad in itself. You know what I'm saying? It's really sad. But yeah, I mean, all these organizations. That's why I don't join organization myself. I don't get involved with
Yeah.
like different I don't get involved with these organizations or movements because it can go downward. It could turn to an ugly situation. You know what I'm saying? Then there's
Mhm.
too many conflicts and disagreement where individuals end up leaving, they start create their own organization. Then there's gonna be that conflict and disagreement. And it's like now you don't wasted your time. You don't waste your precious time doing this when you could have been doing other things. So
Exactly. And my
um
thing is, these
mhm.
organizations, and people think it's because you're not in an organization that you're not really putting in work in the community. We need to go ahead and cut that out too, because
Right, yeah,
I mean,
let's
this
dismantle that. Let's dismantle
mental
that.
that because like I mean, you got people in organizations that probably ain't doing shit either. I mean, so we need to go ahead and dismantle, go ahead and denounce that whole notion because I mean, this either a small or a big contribution is still a contribution to your community, whether you in the
Absolutely.
organization.
Absolutely. You got people on the streets, right? You got
Mm-hmm.
people who, give and feed the homeless people all the time. They don't associate with any type of organization. You know what I'm saying? They just do it because that's who they are. You got somebody that help their neighbor out next door. You know what I'm saying? So, but we don't give those people credit because they're not a part of something or they're not affiliated with something. No, you don't have to be. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to join something just so you can do the community work or make contribution to an individual, have impact in people's lives. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end
Exactly.
of the day, people can see you for who you are as an individual. They see you as the person. You know, so and to me that's sick when people start saying things like they're making that type of criticism. Oh, if you're not a part of the organization, you ain't. No, I don't want to be a part of your organization. I don't want to join anything you got because a lot of y'all are corrupted. You know what I'm saying? Y'all messed
Exactly.
up in the head. So it comes with too many baggages, and I'm not gonna go ahead and stress myself out. You know what I'm saying? And put myself in a situation where my health is fading because I'm dedicating myself to this group right here, and they ain't trying to do nothing, but they want to just cause hell. They want to have this ego battle, if you will, which bring by ego starvation. They want to be Somebody want to be the face. Somebody want to be the Messiah, and that's not what it's all about. That's really not. And it sounded like to me that's what Huey Newton was on. As a matter of fact, Asada Shakur brought this up also in the book as well. So she she brought this up in this paragraph. She said this. She was like, politically, I was not happy at all with the direction of the Panther. Huey went on a nationwide tour advocating his new theory of intercommunality. The essence of the theory was that imperialism had reached such a degree that sovereign borders were no longer recognized and that oppressed nations no longer exist, only oppressed communities within and outside the US. The problem was that somebody had forgotten to tell these oppressed communities that they were no longer nations. Even worse, almost no one understood Huey's long speeches explaining intercommunalism. Huey knew was not what you would call a good speaker. In fact, he had a kind of high-pitched, monotonous voice, and his rambling for 3 hours about the negation of the negation was sheer disaster. People walked out in droves. Instead of criticizing what was happening, most of the party members defended it. When I said that Huey needed speaking lessons, they jumped down my throat. When Huey changed his title from defense minister to the ridiculous sounding supreme commander and then to even more ridiculous supreme servant, damn near nobody said a word. That was one of the big problems in the party. Criticism and self-criticism were not encouraged, and the little that was given often was not taken seriously. Constructive criticism and self-criticism are extremely important for any revolutionary organization. Without them, people tend to drown in their mistakes and not learn from them. And I do strongly agree with her on that. Anytime you put yourself in that position of leadership, right, you have to be aware of your own action. You have to be aware of your character and how you go about approaching things. So
Yeah,
if you're not willing to take on the critique that as far as what you need to work on, as far as your characteristic, as far as your behavior, you know what I'm saying, then your leadership is going to crumble. And when it
exactly.
crumbles,
And then,
then
yeah, exactly. And then, like, that's my thing. And Stokely and Kwame Ture also talked about in his autobiography how the Black Panther Party wasn't open to constructive criticism. I mean, you got to be open to any type of criticism, whether it's constructive or whether it's blatant, because how you going to develop and grow as an organization or as an individual if you can't be open to constructive criticism? And that's always been my critique of the Panthers as well. I mean, even certain people that are loyal to the Panthers today can't take constructive criticism, like about the Panthers or even about themselves. We want to give people certain passes that we wouldn't give to the average person. I mean, whether Huey was a prominent figure or not, I mean, you have to have checks and balances. You gotta have like certain people that's gonna call you out on your bullshit.
you're right. You know what I'm saying? Especially those who care about you
Exactly.
enough to help you to
Mm-hmm.
elevate and want to see you do better. And I get what she mean when she said that here we need to, work on becoming a better speaker when it comes to leadership. That's where somebody, that's where he should have someone that was a elocutionist. A
Yeah.
elocutionist is someone who's a very powerful speaker who know how to articulate words and who can be able to teach people how to be able to actually give a good formal speech. Um, right, but when you have somebody like that that's not willing to listen, that's not willing to hear other people or other members, then it started to make you wonder, well, what is it really about organizing or is it a cult? So it almost makes you think that the
Exactly.
Black Panther Party is a cult as opposed to being an organization. Because if they weren't
Mm-hmm.
going to allow people to have suggestions or give criticism or even allow group think where people can all pitch in with ideas or whatnot to help bring up a foundation, then it's basically a cult. I mean, it's a cult because it's like it's centered around one person. That one person want to run everything, and that person feel like his ego become fragile because people giving that person a criticism or giving them some type of pointers that would bring some type of liberation or whatnot, or try to help them, so they don't want to hear that. So it's like they'll totally dismiss it, and then they'll make those individuals look like the bad guy. And so as Asada was speaking in this book, she was made to be the bad guy because she said something, she spoke up on it. So now people turn on her like, oh, you can't talk down on the chairman like that. That's the chairman. You can't disrespect the chairman like that. Well, yeah, but you're right. He is the chairman, but that's besides the point. I mean, he got some things that he need to work on, and we all got that
And
we need to work on.
everybody has some things to work on. And my thing about these organizations as well, I mean, if y'all trying to work towards a common goal, y'all trying to work towards a common objective, then why are there so
Mm-hmm.
many different various organizations out here? I mean, if y'all really trying to work on a common goal, and it's like you said, as soon as someone disagrees with someone, it's like you want to label them an agent, or you want to label them a outcast, so you want to basically ostracize and excommunicate them from the organization. And it started to become like church sometimes. It started to become like a religion where certain members that disagree with you, or you want to excommunicate them and get rid of them, where it could be
Mm-hmm.
something that can actually help the organization grow and develop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then see, here's the thing. Certain people have low self-esteem, you know what I'm saying? And they mask they mask their low self-esteem just by putting off this image, this ego front, just to make people look at them as the most powerful individual. But if you know the person, you can see past all of that. You can really see that they have some low self-esteem about themselves. Someone put groupthink is one of the worst things about our organization.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then someone else put strange self-criticism is a basic Maoist concept. How else can they get better? That's true. How else can you get better if you don't look at your problem and look at what you're doing and try to improve yourself as an individual? How can't you become better?
And brother Zahir Torre, shout out to him. He brought that down in my inbox the other day. As a matter of fact, about self criticism and all that. That's basically a Chairman Mao concept. Basically, anybody that disagree with you, basically, he just killed them. I mean, and there were certain party members that if you disagree with any of their ideology or disagree with something that the party did, they would either excommunicate, ostracize you from the whole party, call you an agent, which they did to Kwame Ture. When Kwame Ture had basically abandoned the relationship between SNCC and the Black Panther Party, they labeled Huey had labeled Stokely an agent, or
Why?
either they would they would murder them and get rid of them, send out hit squads on them.
So what? Okay, so they excommunicated with Kwame Ture because he was
It
with
was
SNCC organization, or because
no
he gave critique.
he basically give critique, and he basically also disagreed with forming class alliances with other ethnicities. He disagreed with as well. I mean, because
Mm,
he when he went transition from like the civil rights movement to Black Power, basically he was against forming any type of alliances with whites. The Black Panther
mm-hmm,
Party had the SDS Weatherman. They had the
mm-hmm,
Young Patriots. They had the Brown Berets and all the other groups that they had organized with that shared similar class structure, that was in the same class distinction as them. So he ultimately he disagreed with that, along with them not being able to take any type of constructive criticism. So that's part of the reason why he basically abandoned the relationship between SNCC and the Black Panther Party. And he went on to he moved to I think he moved to Africa, and then transitioned to Pan Africanism.
mm. Wow, 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 wow. So, uh, one last thing. Now, you said you had the book from Huey himself called Revolutionary Suicide. Now,
Absolutely, I do.
okay, so now what is the passage in that book that you want to share about what Huey said that
All
people may
right.
not know?
Okay, I have it. I have it right here.
Mhm.
And this basically corroborating that he was doing stuff way before he got addicted to drugs. I mean, it just exacerbated. But I'm gonna read on page 79 of Revolutionary Suicide, and it says, I first studied law to become a better burglar. Figuring I might get busted at any time and want to be ready when it happened, I bought some books on criminal law and burglary and felony and looked up as much as possible. I tried to find out what kind of evidence they needed, what things were actually considered violations of the law, what the loopholes were, and what you could do to avoid being charged at all. They had law for everything. I studied the California Penal Code and books like California Criminal Evidence and California Criminal Law by Frick and Alicom, concentrating on those areas that were somewhat vague. The California Penal Code says that any law which is vague to the ordinary citizen, the average reasonable man who lives in California, who is exposed to the state's rules, regulations, and culture, does not qualify as a statute. Later on, law enforcement courses helped me to know how to deal with the police. Before I took criminal evidence in school, I had no idea what my rights really were. I did not know, for instance, that police can be arrested. My studying helped because every time I got arrested, I was released with no charge. Until I went to prison for something I was innocent of, I had no convictions against me. Yeah, I had done a little of everything. The court will convict you if it could, but if you knew the law and were articulate, then the judges figured you were not too bad because your very manner of speaking indicated that you have been indoctrinated to their way of thinking. I was doing a lot of things that were technically unlawful. Sometimes my friends and I received stolen blank checks from a company, which would then make out for $150 to $200, never more than an amount consistent with a weekly paycheck. Sometimes we stole the checks ourselves, other times we bought them from guys who had stolen them. You had to do this fast before the companies distributed check numbers to banks and stores. We burglarized homes in the Oakland and Berkeley Hills in the broad daylight. Sometimes we borrowed a pickup truck and put a lawn garden tools in it. Then we drove up to a house that appeared empty and rang the bell. If no one answered, we rolled the lawnmower around to the back, as if we planned to cut the grass and trim the hedges. Then swiftly we broke into the house and took what we wanted. Oftentimes I went car prowling by myself. I would walk into the streets till I saw a good prospect and break into the car and take what was on the seat or in the glove compartment. Many people left their cars unlocked, which made it easier. Now I'm just gonna stop right there, because right there
Mm.
indicates that and Huey P. Newton. I mean, everybody has a past. I'm not trying to be on no respectability politics and none of that.
Right.
But at the same time, like Huey P. Newton, I mean, he was engaged in criminal behavior before he founded Black Panther Party with Bobby Seale in 1966. So I just feel as though it might have exacerbated once the drugs and all that got involved. But Huey P. Newton has always had a temper. He's always engaged in fist fights with people and all that. I mean, and even Bobby Seale backed it up in his book "Seize the Time" as well.
Mm. Wow. So, do you think people need to study more into the Black Panther movements to
Mm-hmm.
really understand like what's really going on and not just focus on what is given as far as the good part, the aspect of it, but learn the history about the whole movement in itself from the good, bad, and ugly.
Yeah, most definitely. We need to get positive as well as a negative, and have some sort of balance, because I mean, in the new age spiritual movement and all that, they say positive vibes only. We try to make jokes about it, but then you want to be on positive vibes only when it comes to the Black Panther Party. I mean, you don't want to expose the negative because, I mean, it can make some people look at you differently, and then you want to protect people's image and protect people's reputation. So you will basically dismiss what, because I heard seen some brother on the post yesterday basically saying, okay, we aware of Huey P's contributions, like basically saying like, okay, like, all right, basically whatever, like what are we gonna do to contribute to 2023? But in 2023, I bet soon as Kwanzaa comes, y'all gonna bring Milana Karenga's allegations. But
Right. And I feel
we not forget what he done allegedly done back in the 60s and 70s, but we should forget what Huey P. Newton done back then as well.
right, exactly. And that's why I don't like that confirmation bias thing either. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to your favorites, nobody can say nothing about them. But everybody else you can speak on. And then another thing too, like people get upset when you speak on by Elijah Muhammad, right?
Look. Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got people that will get in their feelings about Elijah Muhammad because they admire him so much. I get that, but you gotta recognize that there was some things that was going on. He was not the honorable person like you think he was. You know what I'm saying? And then
Yeah,
like
exactly.
even Garvey had a lot of flaws too. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Absolutely.
I admire what Garvey wrote. I admire the information, but at the same time, I know that Garvey had flaws. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, so all these leaders that we inspire, we have to recognize their flaws. We must
Mm-hmm.
recognize their flaws. We cannot overlook those flaws and just focus on the good. We can't. We gotta see that they had the good and the bad. You know what I mean? So that way we will learn, what we can take from their philosophy, their principle, and what they stood on, and we learn not to make those same mistakes that they made. You know what I mean?
Precisely.
Or
Precisely.
again, or make those choices they made. So
Yeah. And then we have to be very cautious of the next generation that we raising up, because I mean, we shouldn't be having these conversations 50 to 100 years down. We really serious about liberation. We're gonna be having these same conversations,
right,
hashing out these same contradictions. Like, I mean, what are we doing to build for the artists? That's the thing. I mean, we could continue to hash out stuff that, I mean, that happened back in the '60s. I mean, we really haven't really made much progress since then. So, what are we
right,
doing to
right,
actually do something for our descendants to actually have something that's tangible?
right, right, right. And then my thing is, we and always say is we must study psychology. We must start studying psychology, especially dark psychology and cognitive psychology. Why? Because we have to understand human behavior. You have to study
Mm-hmm.
human behavior. You have to study how people act and how people think, especially when it comes to being in a position of leadership. And one of the books that I always recommend people to read is this book right here, The Laws of Human Nature, right, by Robert Greene.
Around the brain. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I always recommend this book only because he goes deep into how human as a collective, how we behave as far as our behavior pattern is concerned. And this is why science is very vital, not to just study about evolution, but study about the biology, study about the behavior traits of human beings and why we act the way we do, or why we have the mindset that we have, right? Why we adapt to society, why we have culture and all that. We have to really get into those things and study those things. Those subjects should not be overlooked. As psychology, anthropology, sociology, those should not be overlooked. They should be actually studied. You know what I'm saying? Because
Absolutely.
that way you could start paying attention more. And when we look at movements or communities like the conscious community, for example, the conscious community is a catalyst for scammers, con artists, you know what I'm saying,
Mm-hmm.
and other type of abusers out there, right? It has become a catalyst because people see this as more of an opportunity to make a hustle as opposed to bringing
Absolutely.
about, help for the community or liberate as far as bringing group economics, bringing some form of political education. They see it as an opportunity to capitalize. You know what I'm saying? So the conscious community is a easy target for other so-called black leaders to capitalize off of them. So now we have to get into the question about what is black leadership? What does that look like for us? What does that mean to have a black leader in this modern time?
Exactly. And then, as far as leadership is concerned, and calling people out, I mean, certain amount of these people, I mean, we could say that they're actually, they actually run like, I mean, a common community where we start wondering whether or not they actually for the people or not too. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's why I feel as though, people should actually, I wouldn't say be their own leaders, but each one should actually
Mm-hmm.
possess some type of leadership
Mm-hmm.
quality within themselves. So,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, so people can actually check on their bullshit instead of actually trying to get over on the people.
Right. right? And then somebody put Yaya Bay. We should only take the good out of our leaders and stay away from the errors they made. We all have flaws. See, that's a problem right there. Let me
That's
tell
the
you why
problem.
that's a problem. That's a problem. You can't just take the goods out. You just can't. You just can't. Yes, we all have flaws. All right. See, what you're using, that's a tap out. That's a tap out to say, well, we all make mistakes. So why you want to talk about somebody else making mistakes? We all make mistakes. Of course, we all make mistakes, but that doesn't mean that we should not analyze those mistakes. So that way we won't make those same mistakes as those individuals. Okay. So to sit here and say we gotta stay away from errors, that's a problem. That means that if that person
Extreme
have did
problem.
something that was very horrendous to individuals, such as abuse, such as you know, domestic violence or something like that. You know what I'm saying? That got to be looked at. That got to be carefully analyzed because now you have to question yourself. Well, does this person really qualify themselves as a leader? Does these individuals really set a good standard? Are they somebody you really want to model after? No, but you should. Yeah, you should take some good information, but at the same time, you should carefully look at what they were doing as far as the bad too. We can't just ignore the bad. I mean, we can't ignore the bad and just look at the good. You know what I'm saying? That's just like sweeping stuff up under the rug. Sweep it up under the rug and look at just look at the good thing on the outside. That's why there's so many problems in the household. All right, let's talk about family in the household. Right, we always have that one person that is a leader in the family. Right, that person that is admired by the whole entire family. Right, but the moment that you point out what they did to someone or to others, as far as abuse, when it comes to sexual abuse, the first thing people will say is, "Oh nah, that person ain't did it," or whatever goes on in the house, it stays in the house. Don't tell nobody. All right. At the end of the day, let's just look at what he has done. He has done good things for us. Let's look at how he took care of us. No, let's not just look at that. You don't look at how it affect those individuals in the household. You don't look at how it affect the mindset as far as the relationship is concerned. Then you want to know why these people grow up and develop a certain type of attitude. Dr. Umar Johnson said something the best. Now, a lot of people don't like Umar Johnson like that, but he said this, and this is very true. He said, whatever happens in the household, right, that child will bring it outside and it will have an impact on the community. So that means
Absolutely.
that wherever's taking place, it has to be looked at. So whatever goes on, sometimes it is our business to know what's going on, so that way we won't be impacted by that individual because of what they deal with. So you have to deal with what's going on from the inside and then work your way on the outside. So it does make a difference, you know what I'm saying? But we have gotten to the habit as a people that we supposed to just throw things on the bus, just sweep it on the bus and just look at the good and take out the bad and just look at the good. You know what I'm saying? And we can't do that. You can't always do that. That's not going to always work. You gotta see things for what they are. I mean, whether you like it or not. Everything when it
Yeah.
comes to history, everything is not going to be good and everything's not
No.
going to be bad. It's a combination of everything. You know what I'm saying? Whether it be dealing about Black history, world history, U.S. history, all of that in combination, it's going to always be the good, bad, and ugly. You know what I mean? We always want something that makes us feel good. We want something that make us feel accommodated, and it's not going to always be like that. You know what I'm saying? So when we did this video about Huey Newton and what goes on in the Black Panther Party, it's not to throw shade at him.
Oh.
It's not to make him look bad, but this is the count that was given by authors who have done their research. It was given by people who were former members of the party. They were the ones that were saying it. They were the ones that were speaking on it. We wasn't there, so we're going by the information that's been put out there. We're going by the information that Asada Shakur has said. We're going by the information what Erica Higgins was saying. You know what I'm saying? That's what we're going by. So for anything,
I want to touch on that comment too because it's comments like Yaya bad man. There's comments like why brother polites exist. Comments like that's the reason why R. Kelly exists because we not exposing, so we only exposing certain people that we have a dislike for, have some type of disdain for. But people that we show like allegiance to. We want to give them a pass to only focus on the good. And this is why pedophiles, molesters, this is why abusers exist within the community. It does seem like it's a cop out at the end of the day. I mean, people got to be held accountable every day. I mean, whether or not, I mean, whether or not we like them or not, whether we show disdain, whether we champion this type of person, call them out on their bullshit at the end of the day. I mean,
Right. I mean, and that's just all what it is. I mean, it hurts, and we don't like to hear stuff like this. You know what I'm saying? Especially as people that's the closest to us or people that we inspired by. But we gotta know that they gonna carry flaws. You know what I'm saying? Now, and it depends on what they have done, which has impacted, which could bring about a positive or a negative to individuals. Okay. And what we see that, yes, Huey have done positive things, but at the same time, Huey also brought about negativity to a lot of people, which is why many members left the Black Panther Party, because they couldn't deal with his attitude. They couldn't deal with him anymore. You know what I'm saying? He was too engulfed into himself and into the drug life, to where he started to become very abusive to women. You know what I'm saying? And he started doing abusive things to members in the party. So why would you want to continue to stick around with someone that's constantly abusing people? You know what I'm saying? And constantly making it about themselves and not putting their focus on the things that need to really be done. You know what I mean? So I mean, I think the Black Panther Party would have been a lot stronger if there wasn't a lot of chaos going on. But because you got so much chaos and there was so much bickering, fighting going on amongst the members, and you got the founder just terrorizing people, you know what I'm saying? That gives that person a bad name. So at the end of the day, it's like Huey did it to himself. Huey P. Newton brought
absolutely.
that on himself. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
but however, this information that we were sharing, right, it has not been really put out into the public's eye, because it's been overshadowed by the good things, and it was made to seem like Huey was the victim, which at the end he did become a victim when he died, because he was a victim to gun violence. But prior to that, it was making it seem like, Huey was just an innocent person, and he was not a person that was vindictive or committed any type of crime. He was just totally innocent. And that's not the case here. That's not the case that we see. He was not totally innocent. So, I mean,
I mean, no one,
it is what it
no one
is.
was told, it is what it. No one was totally innocent. I mean, but I mean, we know that what COINTELPRO did to the party and all that. I mean, we know that COINTELPRO caused a wedge between him and Eldridge Cleveland, where they had formed two factions of the Black Panther Party. I mean, we know all that information, but the information is not really getting disclosed. Like some of the mistakes and bad decisions that Huey P. Newton made, that led to the ultimate final demise of the Black Panther Party. And that's what we were addressing on this video. Because I mean, if we don't learn from the mistakes, we doomed to repeat them.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. And he said, "Well, we weren't trying to take your comment out of context. I apologize if we did. But it was just the way that it came off, because we had people that make those type of commentaries. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
They use those commentaries as a way to just pretty much bring about distraction from what need to be focused on altogether, to bring some form of confirmation bias. So my apologies if your comment
Uh-huh.
was taken out, if it was taken out of context. You know what I'm saying? But it sounds very familiar, because we know people that have done this numerous a time just to bring about distraction, to use confirmation bias. Yeah. So okay, but anything else you would like to say before I go ahead and close it out? We've been on here for about a good hour and 14 minutes. Anything you want to say? Or
Yeah,
any recommendation?
yeah. I know this book is very controversial, but like I always shadow the Panther, but I always say that we need to read sources that we agree and disagree with, because you never know what you're gonna learn out of those sources. And here's another book, Black Panther Party Reconsidered. This is a very excellent source right
Oh,
here.
who is that by?
By let me see here. Edited by Charles S. Jones. Black Panther Party
Mm.
Reconsidered.
So now a little bit. So what does that book go into, as far as, like, just to share with
It,
the
it is
audience a little bit about that book?
Well, that book goes basically into the beginning of the Black Panther Party up to the ultimate demise of it. This gives more of a synopsis, more of a it gives more of a summary of what's going on that went on in the Black Panther Party, the good and the bad.
Uh,
So I will
uh,
make a recommendation on that. And this is the Revolutionary Suicide again by Huey P. Newton. And that goes to the details of his early life, how he formed the party,
mhm.
and basically up to his I think around 1973 he composed his autobiography. So y'all go ahead and check those sources out, because you will gain more insight of what actually occurred within the party, in addition to things that ultimately led to his demise.
Mm. Yeah, and also I do recommend people please study psychology. Study psychology. Study cognitive psychology at that. Get Robert Greene's book. I would recommend you guys get his book. I would recommend you guys study about human biology, anthropology. You guys really need to study about that and study the history of politics and political organization, whatnot. Um, I personally also want to recommend sociology too, because sociology deals with social groups and interaction and things of that nature, right? So yeah, these are more like academic stuff. However, they are very vital and they very important. So, if you guys ever decide to start like an organization or get down to some type of organization, you need to really study about psychology because you got to study humans' behavior. You got to study how people think. You got to study um, group interaction. You know what I'm saying? You have to. It's very important to study these things before you even take into consideration to join any organization. Learn about the history of the organization. Learn about, get familiar with those leaders of these particular groups before you even just jump in. Because once you start getting familiar with them, then you can be able to make your decision. And don't be afraid to ask questions. That's one thing we do.
Yeah,
We tend to do. We become afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. If you got to ask some questions, and if you can get answers, then you can get the answers. But if these people refuse to answer your questions, or they don't want to engage with you on such a matter, then your best bet is not to get involved and not to study. I mean, not to get involved, not be a part of no organization, whether it be religious, whether it be political, social, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Your best bet is not to get involved because 9 times out of 10, you're gonna run into some problems. You're finna run into some BS, and you
and
don't want
also
that. Go ahead.
and also vet these people before you join these organizations too. Don't just join an organization just because it sounds good. They give some feel good rhetoric. You got to vet these people. You got to vet their character. You got to vet their principles. You got to vet their whole ideologies and everything. I mean, if you actually make sure that they align with your principles and morals as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, make sure of that. Make sure. All right, everybody. Thank you guys for coming in. Tune in, watching the channel, watching the videos. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate that. Oh, I meant to address this comment right here. The brother put, and the women were only allowed to date party members.
Yeah,
Mm, that was interesting. That one's interesting right there. But yes, thank you guys for tuning in. Shout out to everybody in the chat once again. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell. Share the channel. If you guys want to leave a comment on the video, you can at the bottom of the description. So you guys leave your commentaries and whatnot. And thank you, brother Desjon, for coming through. I really appreciate you so
I
much.
appreciate
And I
you.
really appreciate that. All right. So y'all take it easy. Peace. Talk to y'all
All right,
later.
peace.